All right. Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon to everyone on the West Coast. My name's Ed Recker. I am with Sallie Mae slash Sally. I am going to wait just a couple more minutes, given that we started just a tad early here. So sit tight. Please be patient. We'll wait, like I said, another minute or two to allow some folks to join before we dive into the formal presentation. All right. Thanks so much, everyone, for your patience. Again, my name is Ed Recker. I am with Sally slash Sallie Mae. I want to thank you all for joining us this evening and this afternoon for you all on the West Coast as we talk about the first step in finding the money you need to go to college. In other words, completing the FAFSA. So I do want to give a giant shout out to NSHSS, National Society of High School Scholars here. We really appreciate the partnership here at Sally and Sallie Mae. We're honored to be a part of this evening's presentation, and we're hoping you all get something really good out of it. So thank you once again for joining us, and thank you to NSHSS for allowing this. So, a couple of quick housekeeping pieces before we get started. So, first and foremost, we are recording tonight's presentation. So keep that in mind. And I believe we will be. Let me double check to see where that's going to be. Oh, I can't quite see it, but I
It's
do
in the
know that it
chat.
will be. It is being recorded. So that's first and foremost. I do also want to tell folks, as you've probably noticed, um, we do want to hear from you. So if you would be so kind, if you have questions, you can feel free to type them in. Please do it in the Q&A section, the question and answer box. I did get clarification that the recording is going to be published on the website. So that is in the chat. So if you take a look at the chat, you'll be able to see where the URL is to be able to access the recording. All right. Beyond that, I believe we will get started here. So thanks again, folks, for your patience, and uh, we're all gonna jump in. We do have one other quick question. Yes, everyone is being muted upon entry. So if you don't mind, if you have questions, please make sure to type them in the Q&A box there. So, all right. So today we're going to learn about the FAFSA. This is our agenda. Actually, I should probably start by introducing myself. I think I'd mentioned my name's Ed Recker. I'm with Sallie Mae slash Sally. I am our Director of High School Relationship Management here at Sally. I do want to give a little bit of background information, though. I've been with Sally for about 6.5 years now, which doesn't even seem real, but it is. So that's a great thing. But prior to that, I was on campus and actually a little over 17 years, primarily in the financial aid office. So various roles in the financial aid office, of which I probably spent about 8 of those years as a director of financial aid. So I guess what I'm saying is that I have lived and breathed the FAFSA for the better part of my professional career here. So I do bring a little bit of additional background, depth, and breadth to this topic, and hoping to help you all through it and yeah, gain some really good knowledge out of it. So we're going to learn about the FAFSA tonight. Primarily, what are the timelines and deadlines? We're also going to go through how to get started. We're going to dig in further to some of the naming conventions and considerations within the FAFSA. And then finally, we're going to try to leave with some guidance on some free tools and resources. So, all right, diving right in here. So, So, first off, what is the FAFSA? So, the FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid, and it's the first step in applying for federal, state, and institutional aid. I'm a little biased, but I think it's the most important form or application you'll fill out in your college journey, and it'll definitely help determine your financial aid eligibility. So the FAFSA uh, officially opens on October 1st. So we've been conditioned to that. Although this year it actually opened quite early. So good news, especially after the past couple of years where we've had some delays on it, but every student was available or able to fill out the FAFSA starting during the week of September 15th. So about 2 weeks ago. They opened up, they called it the beta. They opened that up early to all students, but then it also formally opened to everyone middle of last week. So even though technically in most years, knock on wood, it's going to be October 1st, this year it opened early. So a nice little surprise. It is important that you complete the FAFSA early because some financial aid programs are awarded on a first come, first served basis. So this also goes for returning students, returning college students. Returning students, and this is important, they don't get special consideration for certain types of aid. So, regardless of who you are, where you're at in your educational journey, if you apply late, you could miss out on some funding options. And for those students applying to college, keep in mind that financial aid deadlines aren't the same as college admission deadlines. So make sure you check both. And a lot of schools will, they'll have an admissions deadline and a FAFSA deadline. So make sure you're checking on both of those. And then lastly, don't assume you aren't eligible for aid because your family's income is too high. Almost every student is eligible for some form of financial aid. And aid eligibility is based on several factors, not just income and savings. So you'll also want to fill out the FAFSA. That website is studentaid.gov. And you can also go there for pretty much any and every type of update when it comes to the FAFSA. All right. So moving on, we're going to discuss how to get started. So there are two things that a student and the parent need to do before they can start the FAFSA. The first is they need to establish an FSA account, which is formally called an FSA ID. Please know that the FSA account and FSA ID are the same thing. So you don't need to apply for an FSA account if you already have an FSA ID from a previous year. You establish it once and use the same one throughout the process. And new for this year, and this is, we do recommend that you apply for that FSA account ahead of time. But the Department of Education, new this year, they have enhanced the FAFSA process so you can actually obtain an FSA account and complete the FAFSA in the same session. So this used to wasn't the case. You used to had to apply early for your FSA ID. It would take 3 to 5 business days, and then you could do the FAFSA. You no longer have to do that. You can do it concurrently. And part of that is because when you would fill out for that FSA ID or FSA account previously, it did a identity verification. Well, it still does that, but now it's doing it in real time. So you don't have that lag. You can just do it all in the same session. The next element is the need for multi-factor authentication, also referred to as two-step verification. Along with the FSA account and password, users need to get a secure code via text, email, or an authentication app in order to log into studentaid.gov. The user will determine how their preference, I'm sorry, the user will determine their preference of how they receive the code when setting up their FSA account. In addition, once that multi-factor authentication method is set up by the user will be presented with a backup code. Now, the backup code is exactly that. It's a backup code, and it allows the user to log in without multi-factor authentication if they don't have access to the code via either text, email, or authentication app, whatever way you set it up. You do need to know, though, that this is the only time the user will be presented with the backup code. So make sure once you get that backup code, you print it off, you write it down, you do a screenshot, do whatever you have to do to retain it, and make sure you keep it in a secure place. So really quickly, I saw a couple questions pop up in the Q&A. I'll answer those quick. So is the FAFSA required for both undergraduate and graduate years? The answer is yes. In order to receive federal student aid, you're going to have to complete it as a graduate, and an undergraduate. Um, and the next question, do we need a different FAFSA account per student? So it says I will have all my kids at school at the same time, so they each need their own account. That is correct. So regardless of, parent only needs one. Think of your FSA account or FSA ID as an electronic signature. You can't sign for someone else. They can't sign for you. They all need their own signature. Think of that as the FSA account, and that also goes the same. So parent needs one. Each individual child needs one. Yes, parent needs their only one as well. Um, One more quick question before I move on. Each parent does need a separate FSA ID. So again, you can't sign for someone else. Think of it as from that perspective. It is an electronic signature. It is representing you as an individual. So each spouse would need their own FSA ID as well, FSA account. That's a great question. All right, so moving right along here. So here's some other information that you'll need from as a student and or a parent to complete the FAFSA. So we've listed some of the information and documents right here on the screen, and some things are relatively commonplace. But one thing you may notice is that federal income tax return and W-2s are not listed as needed information. That's because the Department of Ed and the IRS have set up a direct data transfer for financial information called the Future Act Direct Data Exchange, or FADDX, which eliminates the need for tax information for the vast majority of FAFSA filers. And I should probably clarify that. What that really means is you don't need your tax forms or W-2s when you sit down and do the FAFSA. That information is being pulled over automatically from the IRS, which greatly reduces the number of questions on the FAFSA, as well as you as the user having to hunt down, okay, what does this mean? What number goes here? It's all getting transferred over and it's all being done automatically. So one very important thing to remember about the FADDX is that the user, so again, we've gotten a lot of questions already about, okay, who needs an FSA account? So the student and the parent, or parents, if both parents need to get their information transferred over, they're not going to see their financial information. Users must agree to the FADDX, and that's via authorization uh, of the access and transfer of data. And that's really almost immediately at the start of the FAFSA for each user. If you don't authorize access to and the transfer of that tax information, they'll be able, or if you do, they'll be able to, sorry, let me back up. If you don't authorize that, you will be able to key that information in, but no index number will be calculated. And gang, you need that index number. Schools need that index number to be able to determine financial aid eligibility. So keep that in mind. If you don't opt into the FADDX, unfortunately, it's essentially a road to nowhere. The student will not be eligible for any federal aid because they can't calculate an index number. The transferred tax information is used to calculate that index number, which is called the Student Aid Index, or SAI number. Unlike students and parents, financial information is sent to the school in case they have to verify conflicting information and or calculate a professional judgment. You'll want to keep this in mind if you know your financial situation has changed since the tax filing year. Lastly, students can submit their FAFSA information to up to 20 schools. All right, moving on, right up front, you need to select if you're a student or a parent. So when you log into the FAFSA, studentaid.gov, it's going to ask you, are you a student or a parent? The reason they do that is it'll only show the questions for the role that's displayed, streamlining the experience. So if you're a student, it's only going to show you student questions. If you're a parent, it's only going to show your parent questions. These are called user-defined roles. And that means that once you log in, you'll have to identify yourself as the student or the parent. This was implemented in part due to the user's need to authorize tax information transfer from the IRS, but also to help speed up the FAFSA by, again, just presenting users with questions that are only pertinent to their role. And as we previously discussed, once that role is identified, the user is required to provide consent for their financial information to be accessed by the US Department of Education from the IRS. And this also includes non-tax filers via the FADDX process. So you may be asking why non-tax filers? Well, obviously, if you authorize it and nothing comes back, you're a non-tax filer and you've done your part there. And again, I know I've said it multiple times already, but I got to hammer this home. Keep in mind that no index number will be calculated if authorization is not given. So I'm going to answer a couple more quick questions before we move ahead. So can you do this as a minor without parents? So I'm not sure that I fully understand that. You can get an FSA account without a parent. Yes. So you just go on to studentaid.gov, and in the upper right hand corner it'll say create an account. If if the child has a guardian instead, do they also need an account? So we're going to get to that, and I'm going to skip over that for right now because we are going to address that. All right. So if you both need an FSA account, do you have to fill out the FAFSA form on both accounts? Again, I'm not quite sure that I fully understand that. So if we're talking about multiple kids, yes, you as a parent, you would have to uh, do your part on each child. If we're talking about goodness, are you as a parent going to have to fill out the student and the parent portion? No, that's what we just talked about with the user identified roles. All right, let's see here. Does each spouse need a FAFSA ID even if they filed their taxes married filing jointly? That's a great question, and the answer is no. So if parents are married and they file their taxes jointly, only one FSA ID is needed between uh, either one of the parents, and it's really up to you all which one it is. All right. Which tax year is used for the 25-26 FAFSA application? So keep in mind that is for the academic year that just started. That would be for kids who are, I'm sorry, students who are currently in college. It's going to be 2 years prior to when they started. So it will be the, oh my goodness, 2023 tax year. That's when that would be. But for the tax year, or I'm sorry, for this upcoming academic year, 26-27, so the FAFSA that's open right now, it would be the 2024 taxes. All right. If there are parents and step parents and everyone files separately, is info required for all? So we're gonna get to that in just a little bit as well. So I'm gonna bump past that. Um, let's see here. Yep, I already answered this question. It's not required if both parents if parents have filed their taxes jointly, only one FSA account is needed. All right. Is the SAI the same thing as the EFC? The short answer is yes, it is an index number. So, gang, I think what I'm going to do instead of answering questions as we go, because I'm getting a lot of questions on here that we're going to answer within the presentation. I know we're all eager, folks, and I get that. The FAFSA can be a little bit overwhelming, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep going, and I'd ask that you just kind of hold off on some of these questions until the end of the presentation, because I've got a feeling as I'm looking at a lot of these, uh, your answers are going to get, or your questions are going to get answered throughout the presentation. So I'm going to keep going to the present through the presentation. We will, and then if you want to hold on to your questions until the end, I'll do my best to answer them right then and there. But I know for everyone, time, I want to be respectful of everybody's time. And if you can just hold off on the questions till the end, and that's on me, gang. So if you can hold off until the end, we'll get through them, and we'll make sure that everybody's questions are answered. All right. So dependent versus independent student. So this is something that we often get a lot of questions on. So FAFSA dependency is not the same as being claimed as a dependent on someone's tax return. And folks, like I said, we get this a lot, and I'm going to be very candid. I'm not here to say whether something is fair or not fair, or right or wrong, but what I am telling you is that these are the stipulations that the US Department of Education has in place to determine if someone is considered an independent student. So someone is considered an independent student if they're married, if they're pursuing a graduate or professional degree. So think a master's degree or doctoral degree. Now, there are some programs, some exceptions, where they are combined bachelor's and master's programs, or bachelor's and doctoral programs. So think like 3+2 programs, things like that, 3+3 programs. So in that case, you'll probably need to consult with the specific institution for more guidance on that. Generally speaking, regardless of it, if it's a joint program, you're going to start out as an undergraduate student. So I used to work at an institution where they called it a 06 PharmD program, so Doctor of Pharmacy program. So they were in the pharmacy program from day one, but they technically were not a doctoral student until their 5th year. So, that was just at my old school. You're going to want to just double check with that at the school that you're looking at going to. Birth date. So long story short, 24 years or older. If you have dependents who receive their support from you, if you're an active duty military or veteran, now keep in mind you are not considered active duty if you're in the ROTC, are at a service academy, are in the National Guard, or reservists enlisted but activated only for training, or if you were active duty but released under a dishonorable discharge. Those are stipulations in which you would not be considered independent, any of those that I just named off. If you're an orphan, if you're in foster care, or you're a ward of the court since the age of 13. If you've been legally designated as an emancipated minor within your state. Now, I'm going to ask you to refer back to your state law for this, because some states do not have emancipated minor laws. If you are in a legal guardianship, so we had this question earlier. If a student is in a legal guardianship through the court system, they would be considered an independent student. Independent student means no additional information is needed from a parent or that guardian. If the student is homeless or at risk of homelessness, I went through a lot of things there. If the student can check any one of those boxes on the left-hand side of your screen, they are considered an independent student. If they cannot check any of those boxes, they are considered a dependent student, and they would need parental information. So who's considered a parent? So we get these questions quite often as well. So a parent is a biological or adoptive parent, and in some cases, certain step parents. So we talked earlier about the parent, essentially the parent of record is the parent who provides more than 50% of the support for the student. If that parent is married and there's a step parent involved, then the parent and the step parent's information would need to be on the FAFSA. They are both considered the parent of record for the FAFSA. So you would need to include parents if the parents are married or are not married but live together. So keep that in mind. Also, keep in mind that married parents can include same sex couples. If parents are separated but still living together, they would select married. If they are separated and no longer living together, then they would um, identify as separated. In the case of divorce or separation, you would provide information only about the parent that provided the majority of the financial support in the last 12 months. And again, the step parent if that parent has remarried. Now, if you still need help with this, gang, there is a great, they call it a parent wizard on studentaid.gov. And so you'll see the URL there, studentaid.gov/FAFSA-apply/parents. And that'll give you more guidance as to which parent or parents need to be on the FAFSA. So good information there, good information. All right. Now, we often will get questions about reporting assets because again, this can be kind of confusing. And I smile because some things have flip-flopped from year to year. And if you've had to fill out the FAFSA in the past couple of years, you may notice what's old is new again. So last year, and really the previous 2 years, students and families had to report family farm assets and small business assets as on the FAFSA. Well, previous to that, they didn't have to do that. And again, what's old is new again. Students and families no longer need to identify small business assets and net worth, as well as family farm assets and net worth. These were changes enacted as part of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act that passed in July. So that will formally go into effect on July 1st, but realistically, because this is for the 26-27 FAFSA, those no longer apply. You do not have to report family farm assets or small business assets. Now, things you do need to include on the FAFSA as assets. So if you own rental properties, land and second or summer homes, trust funds, uniform gifts for Minors Act or UGMA custodial accounts, uniform transfer to Minors Act or UTMA custodial accounts, money market funds, mutual funds and CDs, stocks, stock options and bonds, other securities, installment and land sale contracts, and that includes mortgages held, commodities, 529 savings plans for anyone in the household as long as the account owner is in the household. Now, there are 529 plans where if someone outside of that household is the owner, so think of a grandparent, aunt, uncle, those types of things. If they are the owner and the beneficiary is someone in the house, you only have to identify those plans if the owner lives in your household. Coverdell educational savings accounts, all of those things need to be included as assets on the FAFSA. Things that are not included as assets on the FAFSA: principal place of residence, so the house you live in, value of life insurance policies, retirement plans such as 401ks, 403bs, and SEP plans, pension funds, annuities, non-educational IRAs, personal possessions, so cars, furniture, clothes, those types of things. And again, any business assets or family farm assets. Everything I just listed, you do not have to have listed as an asset on the FAFSA. So what happens after the FAFSA has been submitted? So we've completed the FAFSA, and gang, trust me when I say it really is a much simpler process now than I think it's ever been. And we'll go over really quickly one of the reasons why. But what happens after the FAFSA is the students will receive a copy of the FAFSA submission summary And this usually happens within a couple of days of submission. And all that FAFSA submission summary is essentially a transcript of the FAFSA, a transcript of all the answers that you've provided. It does not include any financial information. So again, keep in mind, FADDX, it transfers that information over, but the user, student, and parent cannot see what's coming over. So it doesn't include that information on the FAFSA submission summary. Any of the colleges that you listed on the FAFSA will receive that data electronically. Now, some colleges may request additional documentation or information, such as tax data, through a process called verification. Schools will reach out to you directly if this is the case. So keep that in mind. You need not proactively reach out to the schools. They will reach out to you if they need additional information. And we did get this question earlier. Colleges will use that student aid index number or SAI number to determine aid types and amounts of aid and send that information to you via a financial aid offer. Now, some of the frequently used terms and formula considerations. So again, we received this question earlier about the student aid index number or SAI number. This is, as I like to joke and say, it's the artist formerly known as the EFC. Some of the more senior people on this call will probably understand that reference. But that's what it is. The SAI or student aid index number is the output of the FAFSA formula, and it's used to determine what types and how much financial aid a student is eligible for. It's not a reflection of what the student or the family can pay. It is just an index number. And I always like to tell folks, think of it as a guidepost. That's all it is. It is a measuring stick. It is not meant to be able to say, it is not meant to represent a dollar amount. It's not meant to represent what you can or cannot pay. The SAI number can be a negative number, and it can go as low as negative 1,500. So a negative number does not qualify students for extra financial aid, and it does not increase the total amount of aid a student can receive. Rather, it's meant to allow schools to identify students who have increased need. Students can also qualify for federal Pell Grant multiple ways. One way is to use the SAI number and subtract it from the maximum published Pell Grant amount to determine the Pell Grant amount. The other way involves the number of parents in the household size, and the income percentage of the federal poverty tables. Now, again, this is more complicated. And gang, I'll also let you know that once you hit submit on that FAFSA, as long as a SAI number is calculated, it will tell you your Pell Grant eligibility immediately. So even though I gave you all that background information, reality is that you probably don't need to worry about that. Family size. So I referenced family size. Now, this is based on the number of people claimed as exemptions on the tax form filed. And although this is a field that's being pulled directly from the tax forms via the FADDX, you as a filer, FAFSA filer, can put the family size on the FAFSA to ensure accuracy, because we all know that sometimes that family size, the number of people claimed on the taxes, doesn't accurately reflect who's actually in the household. So keep that in mind. Parental information on the FAFSA is to be from the parent who provided the greater portion of the student's financial support, as opposed to the custodial parent. So this was a change as of a couple years ago. We also want you to keep in mind that in-kind support, like housing, food, transportation, those types of things, that should still be taken into consideration when determining financial support. Lastly, the number in college is no longer factored into the federal formula. So the SAI will not change no matter how many children are in college. The question is still on the FAFSA though. It's just no longer factored into the formula. So special circumstances, we ask folks, special circumstances. So these are things that the FAFSA doesn't pick up on. So we a couple of good examples are someone had asked about what tax year. We know that that was 2 years ago, and things may have changed. So if things like that have changed, you're going to want to contact the financial aid office uh, to see if the circumstances would impact your ability to pay and would really quantify a FAFSA adjustment. So some of the things to keep in mind there: a significant loss or reduction in parental or student income or assets, death or serious illness, natural disasters affecting student income or assets, medical or dental expenses not covered by insurance, financial responsibility for elderly grandparents. So we're nearing the end here, gang, and I am going to take some more questions here. So bear with me just a second. I need to switch through a couple of things here. All right, we have to, oh, my apologies, team. Bear with me just a moment. We got to go back to sharing our screen because our legal department says we have to show this screen, and then also we'll take those questions as I promised. Oh, I don't think I'm sharing screen yet. Nope, wrong screen. Stop share. Oh my goodness, this is what happens when you do it live, folks. All the fun things right there, right there. There we go. I got to get back to the legal screen. There we are. And then questions. All right, so back to questions. Okay, so we've covered that if married filing jointly, only one parent needs to complete the FAFSA. That is true. Um, Student driver's license, it may be needed for some state aid applications to determine state aid eligibility. So for the FAFSA, not necessarily directly required, but some state aid or some states have their own supplemental application, which does require a driver's license to validate state residency. All right, so we've got that one. Again, folks, feel free to put your questions in the chat, or I'm sorry, in the Q&A, and I'll do my best to answer them. Can students see the parent financials? Nope, not at all. We covered that one. My son is applying for summer of 26. So which forms does he need to fill out for both fall and spring, or summer and fall semesters? So this one can be a little bit tricky. And I'm going to ask you to actually reach out to the financial aid office at the institution he's attending. The reason being is fall of 2026, pretty straightforward. That's the 26-27 FAFSA. The summer could be the 26-27 FAFSA or the 25-26 FAFSA. It depends on whether or not the school themselves use the FAFSA as what they call, or I'm sorry, summer as what they call a header or a trailer. So you're going to want to talk to them and see which is which. So you may have to fill out the 25-26 FAFSA as well as the 26-27 FAFSA. All right. So when do I need to do my part as a parent? So once the student has completed their portion of the FAFSA, they will invite you as a contributor. The only thing they need to invite you is your email address. Once you receive that, you'll receive a secure link that allows you to log in and automatically connect with your student's FAFSA. So that's it. That's how you connect with them. That's how you move forward. All right. So I started my parent account and it asked me to send the invite to my child. I was told once my kid creates the account and she needs to invite me, will there be issues with this? No. So that was initially, you're absolutely right. That was the case in the past where the student had to start it and then the parent had to do it. Now with, realistically, this is year 3 of all of the FAFSA revisions, and they've streamlined it significantly to the point where now it's essentially, it doesn't matter who starts it. As long as one identifies the other, you'll be all set. All right. If you already have an FSA ID, you do not need to create a new one, so that the FSA ID and the FSA account are the same thing. I don't, and I'm gonna defer to Sydney on this one as to what time the FAFSA is going. I'm sorry, this recording will be available tomorrow. Um, if your income has changed drastically, uh, as I said, that's going to be a special circumstances. So that's going to be something that you're going to want to reach out to the college or university and let them know, hey, this has changed and it's changed uh, drastically. They will have a process for that to adjust the income on the FAFSA. But you don't do anything other than that. You just need to reach out to the school. They will help you through it there. When does the FAFSA need to be filed? So, senior year. So, it just needs to be filed essentially the year before they attend. So, always think of it as October 1st is and moving forward is for the next year. And if you ever have any doubts, if you go to studentaid.gov and then go to the FAFSA section, it'll tell you exactly what academic year you'll be filling it out for. So if you go out there right now, there are two academic years open. So 25-26 and 26-27. So think about when they start. If it's going to be the fall of 2026 as a college freshman, you'll want the 26-27 FAFSA. If your son or daughter is a junior in high school right now, you need to hold off. You won't need to do this until next year. All right. My son is my dependent, but he files separately. Does it make a difference when filing the FAFSA? Uh, I'm not sure that I understand that. I think that goes back to the household question. So, and who's a considered a dependent, or I'm sorry, not a dependent, but who was claimed on the taxes. Um, if again, that FADDX gang, it's going to pick up everybody. So in this case, the question was about is also references a dollar amount earned. As long as they agree to the FADDX, you don't have to worry about any of that. It's going to pull all of that over. Now, if we start talking about income exemptions and how much money is counted against the SAI, for a student, they can earn almost $10,000 before a penny of it is even counted towards the SAI. So keep that in mind. All right. If my parents own a rental property through an LLC, do I need to include it on the FAFSA? So if it's an LLC, it's probably considered as a small business. If it's a small business, they don't have to report that asset. However, whatever money that they report on the taxes, that's automatically going to come over through the FADDX. So again, as long as it's part of a small business, that is an asset associated with small business. It does not need to be included. All right. I have a joint banking and checking account with my 17-year-old. The account is under his name, but I'm the primary custodian. Should I report it under my name? Realistically, it's not going to matter whose name it goes under, just as long as you don't report it twice. So I don't know how many years ago it's been, quite a few, where there used to be what they called asset protection allowances for the parent. They did away with that, so it really doesn't matter. You do just need to report it, and keep in mind that reporting that information is as of the day the FAFSA was completed. But remember, only report it once. So whether it be the student or the parent, doesn't matter. Just only do it once. How do you estimate the value of a rental property? So I would honestly, I'm not a tax consultant, nor am I a real estate consultant. So the short answer would be any asset, net value of an asset is its value minus any outstanding debt or encumbrances. But that's something you may want to talk to either a tax professional, a banker, or a real estate expert on that. I can just give you, like I just gave you, that very, very simple formula. But beyond that, there's no way for me to determine that. Why do calculators on college financial aid sites ask for the value of her home if it's not included on the FAFSA? That's a really good question. I have no idea. They shouldn't be doing that. The only thing that I could think of is potentially there is a form called the CSS profile Now, this is a form used by only about 250-ish colleges and universities throughout the US. I do know that they do ask for property values on that, but beyond that, there shouldn't be any calculator out there that really should be asking it because candidly, again, it doesn't factor in on the FAFSA, on the CSS profile, it does. Do savings account balances need to get reported on the FAFSA? Yes, they get reported as of the day, the balance as of the day you complete the FAFSA. Do health savings accounts need to be included in financials? No, they do not, because they can only be used for healthcare. Ergo, it's not really an asset that can be used to help pay for college. Uh, what is the limit of income that makes you not qualify for federal financial aid? So the answer is there is no maximum, because this is a very dynamic formula. There are a lot of variables that go into it. Um, I guess if we put like a really, really big number in there, like $20 million, I'm sure you would not be eligible for financial aid. But the reality of it is there are a lot of it depends. So really, I can't say that, oh, that number is $1 million or $500,000. It just there are a lot of different variables that can qualify or disqualify you. I shouldn't even say disqualify. Um, for financial aid. All right. So do you see the SAI number? You do get to see the SAI number immediately with the FAFSA submission summary, and really once you hit submit on the FAFSA. So the FAFSA does process very quickly. It will give you that export very, very quickly so that you know what that SAI number is. All right. So we have, let's see here. Looks like we have a question about disability. So again, what they'll do is if you do that FADDX, it's gonna pull all that information over directly from the FAFSA. That should be again because, or I'm sorry, from the IRS, because it's being pulled over automatically. It's considered validated. Now the school may reach out to just verify any disability, total and permanent disability, those types of things. But the reality of it is that all of that information is automatically verified through through the IRS now. There shouldn't be a lot of information needed there. All right. So, question on a severance package. How will that be factored in to the SAI? So, if you received a severance package and it was a lump sum, it is going to show up as likely as taxable income. Now, this is again one of those special circumstances where, if for some reason you do the special or it's showing as higher than what it actually is, you'll need to reach out to the college and university. Just let them know what that is, and they'll have a process to walk you through that. We have a question here about a deceased spouse. So again, special circumstances. So you do have to authorize that FADDX. If a deceased spouse's information is still on there from a prior tax year, it will come over. However, through the FAFSA process, you will likely identify as widowed. At that point, although that financial information comes over, you'll probably have to just reach out to the financial aid offices. What they'll do is they will then just verify that. They'll ask you to verify that. So, unfortunately, that's one of the things that financial aid offices sometimes have to do. You'll want to have a certified copy of the death certificate or something of the like to be able to forward to the financial aid office. All right, if you have two 529 for different kids, do you have to report both of them or just one going to college? Unfortunately, you have to report both. Reason being is if you are the parent, you as the parent are the account owner, you can always change essentially the beneficiary on it. I mean, that's a couple mouse clicks away. So because of that, unfortunately, you do have to report both of them. I'm sorry to say. Are inherited IRAs considered assets of the parent or the student? So, so I guess I would need more information on this. Again, if it's an asset, it needs to be reported. It depends on who received the inheritance. So, if it's the parent was the beneficiary, then it would be under theirs. If it was the student, it would be under theirs. Um, how long is the FAFSA process? Can it be completed within a day? I would go as far to say it could be completed within an hour. If I'm being bold, I would say within 30 minutes. Gang, trust me, it is a far cry from what it used to be, and that's a very good thing. All right. If parents set up a FAFSA account, does the student need a separate account? The answer is yes. Remember, electronic signature, you can't sign documents for someone else. So, parent needs one, student needs one. All right. Should the main parent with disability contact the financial aid office? Not really sure if I fully understand that. If we're talking about the parent who provides more than 50% of the support, they would be the parent of record on the FAFSA. I don't know that you would have to contact the financial aid office regardless. So again, all of that information is being pulled over from the FADDX. If there's a question on the form that we don't know the answer to, should we leave it blank or put a zero in it? So if it's a financial question, um, there is guidance. I like to call it hover help, that should be able to point you in the right direction as to where to find the answer. There are also FAFSA guides out there that should be able to help you there. I would hesitate to say just put a zero in it if you don't know the answer, because if it's a financial question, keeping in mind, gang, there are few of those still remaining on the FAFSA because of that FADDX. But I would encourage you to just do a little bit of research. Most of these are pretty intuitive now and relatively easy to find out. How would I file if I have mom and stepdad and biological father? So again, this is whoever provides more than 50% of the support for you as the student. Is there a way to confirm the financial information pulled from the IRS is accurate? So the short answer is no, there isn't. I mean, if it's with the IRS and that tax return was accepted by the IRS, they're going to, both the IRS and the US Department of Education are going to essentially see that as the source of truth. Now, if for some reason it's not accurate, I mean, again, I'm not a tax professional, but I would strongly encourage you to reach out to a tax professional, because at that point, you may have an invalid tax return due to it being inaccurate. So, can you make changes to the FAFSA after you've submitted it? Yes, at any time after the FAFSA has been processed, you can go in, log back in, and make changes. Now, that said, again, because the financial information is coming over automatically, we would just largely be talking about, number and household changes, maybe if you've received federal benefits or things of that nature. If a student receives money based on non-custodial parents' disability, does the student have to claim that money? I'm not sure that I fully understand that question. So I apologize. I'm gonna just kind of bounce over that and potentially answer offline. Is child support income received required on the FAFSA? Yes, that is. If you are receiving child support, you are required to list that. Now, the follow-up question is usually, well, what it's going to run out at a certain point in time, basically once the child turns 18. At that point, again, that's a special circumstances because we've had a change in the income, a change in the amount of money coming in. So you'd want to just report that to the financial aid office. They'll walk you through that process. All right. Okay. What does deferment and eligible mean? I'm not sure that I fully understand that question. Deferment, that's more of a uh, a student loan question or statement that if someone takes a student loan out, payments are deferred until after their after they either graduate or leave school. Eligible just means you get it, like you, or I should say, you can have it. As a senior, you do complete the 26-27 FAFSA. That is correct. Uh, can you apply at any time if your child enters into school? So if yes, so if your son wants to go to school in January, essentially start college early, you file the 25-26 FAFSA now. That is correct. Only 1 year of financials are considered while filing the FAFSA. Uh, and that's part of the reason why you have to fill out the FAFSA every year, because it's going to look at a new year of financials every time you fill out the FAFSA, knowing that financial situations uh, can change. The student or the parent can start the FAFSA process. So it was only the student, but now the student or the parent can start the FAFSA, and that's where one can invite the other, and that's how they're linked together. So let's see here. I was gifted a brokerage account. Do investment accounts significantly lower the amount of financial assistance? So it's considered an asset. Uh, assets assets are taken into consideration. Last I checked, it was approximately 12%. So 12% of any asset. So in this case, a brokerage account would be taken into consideration. So 12% of 35K. Let's see how good my math is. I think that's 4,200, I believe. So that's what that would be. Okay, so I've been the sole provider for my daughter. Remarried a year ago. Unfortunately, this is a parent and step parent situation. If you're married, and even though your new spouse hasn't provided anything for the student previously, their income needs to be included on the FAFSA. I mean, again, I'm not here to debate fair or not fair. You can talk to the financial aid office about that, but unfortunately, federal regulations would state that yes, any step parents information needs to be included on the FAFSA. All right. Okay, let's see here. Um, All right. Unfortunately, I don't do anything on CSS profile. Reason being is uh, CSS profile, I always like to call it a bit of a black box, because so few institutions use it. And it is not a public document. I don't have a lot of information on it. And I would also say that if we did, I fear that we might get a cease and desist from an attorney. So, right. So, would I qualify for loans as a parent if I'm legally disabled and no work income? So, so we didn't really touch on loans, specifically parent loans. The federal Parent Plus loan is available for folks. Um, it does have some credit eligibility toward it. So that's one of those that the answer is possibly, but you would have to go through that application process. But realistically, when we start looking at federal Parent Plus loans, the eligibility criteria is pretty limited. It's essentially if you are not in active bankruptcy, you have not defaulted on a federal student loan, you have to be a U.S. citizen, and you can't have a lien on any existing properties or assets. And lastly, you have to be more than or no more than 90 days delinquent on any actively reported credit piece on the credit bureau. All right. What if parents live separately and both contribute financially somewhat equally? Do they both need to file the FAFSA? So no. So it's going to be the parent who provides more than 50% of the support for the child. So this is one of those, gang, people ask this often, and they say, well, what if it's shared custody? It's 50-50 down the middle. Now I'm going to say what the Department of Education says. At Christmas or your birthday, someone gave you a better present. That's who's supposed to go on there. Realistically, you need to have that conversation with your parents if they both provide financially, but they're no longer together to figure out who goes on the FAFSA. So, how does the FAFSA work if applying to international schools? Realistically, those schools would have to be have Title IV eligibility. If they do, then it's a case where the FAFSA is just the same. Part of the process is you just identify the schools in which you're looking to go, and if as long as they're Title IV eligible, you can submit that information to that school, and you get packaged with federal aid. All right. Are we to put schools down on the FAFSA even if we haven't been accepted yet? I would say yes, absolutely. You can always pull them off. Uh, Realistically, you can always put them back on. But again, because some aid is given on a first come, first served basis, you're going to want to put the school on there regardless. Like I said, you can always pull it off. That's not a big deal. All right. If parents have filed taxes married filing jointly, only one parent account is needed, but does it matter which parent creates the account? No, it does not, because if it's going to be, regardless of any income discrepancy, because it's married filing jointly, it's going to look at the household income at that point. It's going to look at the income from both parents. It doesn't really matter who's bringing home what at that point. So, good question. Does my child have to apply to the university first, then apply for FAFSA? So no, that's not the case. You can always apply for, put the school code on the FAFSA, and then apply to the institution later. Do timeshares count toward vacation homes? No, they do not. All right. I got married this year and will be changing my name in 3 weeks. Should I wait until that's done to get my student aid ID, or can I get that now? You can get that now. But what I would encourage you to do is just make sure that if you do change your name, you make sure that you're changing it with the Social Security Administration. Remember, that's how they're going to match it up. So realistically, if if you put one name on the FAFSA and it's going to show up as a different name on the Social Security Administration, uh, that it might get flagged for verification process. At that point, realistically, it's just a quick follow up with the financial aid office. Let them know that, hey, I got married. Um, they're real people. They understand that. That shouldn't be a problem at all. So, all right, does the student under the student account, there was a question about the student's investment. Not sure why, but it looks like they're stock investments. So yeah, so in the FAFSA, it does ask for any student assets, and one of which would be investments. So if the student has any investments that are non-retirement investments, so again, any stocks, bonds, annuities, those types of things, those need to be listed in that investment section. Okay, so let's see here. My son is claimed on my taxes. He's dependent of me, but he filed separately. So, so does it make a difference while filing FAFSA to have two different 24? No, so that's a good question. So what the question is really saying, look, my son filed his taxes, I filed my taxes. I didn't claim him as a dependent on my taxes, or maybe I did. Gang, it's okay. Like that FADDX, I'm telling you, it made things so much easier. Uh, it's going to pull all that information over, and it's automatically going to see that, okay, we've got a parent and a student. Now, there is a question on the FAFSA that if you don't think that it's going to pick it up, you can identify how many people are in the house. You can identify that without any issue. That's not a problem. But again, I know it sounds silly, and I know there have been, and I fully understand why there's a lot of maybe angst around the FAFSA, especially given the past couple of years where there have been a lot of hiccups. Um, there has there's been nothing but good up to this point about the FAFSA process, um, speed to calculation, all those things. It took them 3 years, but I feel like they've got it pretty much ironed out to where this thing is a well-oiled machine. So know that as long as everybody has their FSA ID or FSA account, student and parent, it's going to link up. It's going to pull that information over from the IRS. Some of it you can see. Well, actually, not really. Nothing you can see from the IRS. But if you feel like there's ever a question on the household, you can manually key that in. It really is. It's a very, very smooth process. Whew, oh my goodness. 70 questions answered. That was rapid fire. And we're only slightly past the top of the hour. So, gang, I want to thank you for sticking with me through this. I really hope this was helpful information. Again, I want to thank NSHSS for the opportunity to help you all out tonight. Hopefully, again, this was helpful. FAFSA season is here, so go out there. Hopefully, I provided a little more confidence moving forward. But again, it's out there, gang. Go hit it, and best of luck. I know you're going to be able to handle it. So thank you so much again. And this concludes tonight's webinar. Have a great evening, everyone. Good night.